The U.S. Navy reactivated the 4 battleships of the Iowa class in the mid-1980s, equipping them with sea and land attack missiles, as well as modern electronics and similar facilities. The drive to reactivate the battleships came from a strategic interest in increasing the size of the Navy, as well as concern over the construction of the Soviet Kirov-class nuclear battlecruisers. But in 1992, less than 10 years after New Jersey had returned to service, the Navy decommissioned USS Missouri, last of the 4 Iowas. The second life of the class lasted, collectively, less than 25 years. The retirement of the battleships created a hole in U.S. sea power that the Navy struggled to fill in the 1990s, and still has not adequately addressed. Reconfiguring the Iowa-class battleships was both controversial and enormously expensive. Nevertheless, the Navy and the Reagan administration felt that the ships filled an important gap in U.S. naval capabilities, especially given the growth of the Soviet fleet. Between 1982 and 1988, all 4 ships re-entered service with a modern electronics suite and a significant number of missiles. USS New Jersey, first to re-enter service, saw action during the Lebanese Civil War, pounding Druze and Shia positions, although the accuracy of its fire came into question. New Jersey and its sisters would play a variety of roles for the rest of the 1980s, despite concerns about the ship's reliability. However, an accident on USS Iowa in 1989 nearly led to the loss of the ship, and pointed to more systematic problems in the handling of the battleships. As Cold War tensions began to wane, the Berlin Wall came down 5 months after Iowa's incident. The Navy began to look at cost-cutting measures. The receding of the Soviet threat seemed to relax the need for the battleships, which would no longer be required to anchor task forces. A lack of clarity of the ship's roles complicated the situation. The Navy viewed the battleship as centerpieces of battle groups, capable of helping contest open seas against the Soviet fleet. Although they had substantial land attack capability, they were not normally thought of as part of the amphibious team, even as the United States Navy began thinking more seriously about the littoral in the mid-1980s. Other problems included unforeseen crew costs. The Navy had to rebuild expertise on much of the battleship's equipment, including the main guns, concerns about the material condition of the ships, and the rapid rate of technological change. The missile launch systems equipped on the Iowas had become obsolete by the early 1990s. Consequently, New Jersey and Iowa left service in 1990 and early 1991. Missouri and Wisconsin would hang around to participate in the Gulf War before retiring. The Navy had not expected to mothball the battleships so soon after modernization. New Jersey had served for only 9 years in its new configuration. Wisconsin only served 3. But other ships at the end of the Cold War experienced similarly brief service lives, including 2 classes of nuclear-powered missile cruiser. Still, the reasons for decommissioning the battleships were sound at the time, and remain sound today. They were far too expensive to operate for the capabilities that they offered. However, changes in the U.S. Navy's orientation kept the idea of restoring the battleships on the table. The Iowas left service before the real literal turn in U.S. naval doctrine refocused attention on amphibious warfare. With the effective end of the Soviet Navy, the traditional concepts that had dominated U.S. naval thinking since the end of the 19th century receded into the background. To the extent that the Navy wanted to make a contribution, it needed to come through the effects that its ships could project onto land. And the battleships were uniquely well suited to delivering specific kinds of effects. An apparently endless rain of heavy shellfire onto land.